Hi all, this is Skate, and this is a Chieftain T95. This is a British Tier 8 Premium Heavy Tank, and it'll be available very soon via the Blitz fair. Now, this is a preview of this tank, so they gave me this tank early so we could basically make a preview, and I'm very happy about that because, well, I'm not playing against bots. This is on the live server. You can tell by the fact that someone's going to rage momentarily. And there is an RU251 spotting. A bot would never do that. But yeah, this is obviously the live server. And the whole point in this is to give you a preview as to what the tank is actually like. Now, before I go any further, let me just point out that I'm going to be buying this regardless. Because it's a Tier 8 British Heavy. And that just sings to me. I'm a Brit myself, and I really, really want this tank. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be biased in any review I give of this tank, because it's not without some serious drawbacks. And we'll start with the most obvious. This thing has 254mm of frontal turret armour. That is insane. And that rivals Tier 10s. In fact, it's better than a lot of Tier 10s in terms of turret armour. However, you see that hatch on top? That thing has 50mm of armour, or thereabouts. Yeah, it's very, very easy to penetrate. And in terms of the hull, the front armour, the upper plate it's alright actually. It's not amazing, but you'll get some bounces off it on the flat. If you want to maximise the best you can out of that thing, you need to be using as much gun depression as you can. I mean, look how many bounces I just received. If you can hide that port on the right-hand side, I say port, commander's hatch. This thing is insane when using gun depression. And talking about gun depression, you have 10 degrees on this. That's very, very, very nice. And you can see, we're just annoying that Conqueror. And as long as you keep wiggling back and forth, it's quite hard to hit that hatch. Especially when we're playing at ranges like this. Or, in true British fashion, if you can completely hide that side and just poke one side out round a ridge or run a rock on a ridge if you can, and then you are completely set and happy. Sort of. If you're on the flat, like I said, it's not the greatest in terms of armour. It's not bad, that upper plate, but it's not amazing. But when you're using the gun depression, it's pretty much an auto ricochet. I mean, anything pointing down on you, however, well, they're going to pen you no problem at all. That T49 just penned us with heat, with no complications or no issues or concerns. And I didn't pen him back, go figure. So that to me is, it's very good, but I guess that big old commander's hatch on top is a balancing factor. I mean, check this out. Massive respect to the T49 for pulling this shot off. But straight through the commander's hatch with heat from long range. Big respect to that T49. But that just gives a perfect example as to what I mean by that hatch can be an issue. And although moving around does help to reduce the chance of that thing being penetrated, wiggling back and forth, using your gun depression, all these things help to stop it. You can never really guarantee it. But I've been playing this, I've played 24 battles in this tank. And I must admit, I am really, really, really enjoying it. With its 10 degrees of gun depression, it just becomes so much fun on ridges. And it's very mobile. Which means you can hit reverse, accelerate forward, back and forth constantly, and you'd be surprised how much you move and how quickly. But there is no sitting completely hull down in this thing, because of that big old commander's hatch on top. And if you're wondering what a Chieftain T95 is, that's a T95 turret, not the tank destroyer, a different tank. And that's a Chieftain hull. And the Chieftain is just a British icon. Now in terms of the gun, it has a very, very, very good gun. Sort of. Yeah, that makes no sense, I'm well aware. It's got amazing aim time, mine's fully equipped, and it's 1.7 seconds. It's got great gun dispersion, it's only 0.31 something when it's all fully equipped and crewed out. It does 225 damage a shot, which feels a little bit lackluster sometimes. But it fires every 5.9 seconds, which is great. Because that's quite a respectable DPM for a tier 8 heavy. I mean, you got more DPM now than any of the ISs. I think the only thing this doesn't beat is the Carnarvon's DPM, which is around 2,500 equipped. This thing comes in at around 2,200. So you can out DPM if you're stuck in a 1 versus 1 situation, you can out DPM the Russian heavies. The downside to this gun, even though I really like it, is just this is one big drawback to me. It's got 202mm of penetration on its AP, which is not great in a tier 10, or sorry, in a tier 9 battle. Even more so, that APCR only goes up to 250. They're not shockingly bad figures. I mean, we're not talking as painful as the Glacial. The Glacial's got 175mm of penetration, and that thing's quite painful. So we're not talking to that extent, and the only reason we are not talking to that extent is because this thing has the accuracy and the aim time to pull off some amazing shots, and you can snipe weak spots. For example, here, we're aiming for the top of his tank. We get the top of his tank. You couldn't do that quickly in a Glacial. And this thing does have more penetration. So you can penetrate a lot of things, but when you're focusing on something like an ST1, or ST1, perfect example. I really struggled to penetrate the front of that thing in this. That's not, that's really not a good thing. Because if you're stuck in a one-on-one, you're then going to have to rely on your mobility to try and get round him, which isn't always that easy to do. So the penetration you need to watch out for is potentially an issue, and it can, well, it can come a cropper sometimes. This is only going to be when you're up against something very heavily armoured. Something like a KV-4, you can go through it like butter from the front all day long. Because 202 isn't shockingly bad, it's enough to produce really, really frustrating bounces. Or silly bounces, which just shouldn't happen. So if you like tanks where you've got good penetration, but sometimes you're going to have to try and aim for weak spots, you'll enjoy this. If you just want to point, shoot, penetrate, then IS-3 is for you. Or the T94, because that thing has, 248mm of penetration. I mean, that's 2 less than the APCR on this thing. So you really need, in certain circumstances, to be able to penetrate by sniping. Now, 225 for a tier 8, that's another thing we need to look at. I like that personally, because once an IS is shot, I pick an IS because that's what you see a lot of at this tier. But you pick any IS, he shoots, he's got a big old reload. You can pretty much get 2 shots in before they manage to get a shot into you. Or if they've shot and you know it's time to reload, you can come out and almost bully it to a degree. But you've got to know when to be able to do that to make this tank work. If you just want a heavy tank which brawls, this isn't going to be something you enjoy. It's a lot better than the Carnarvon, though, I will say that. Has less DPM, it has less penetration. However, it has pretty much the same, I think it is exactly the same aim time. Has more alpha per shot. It's a lot more mobile than the Carnarvon, and it has much more reliable armour. Yes, it has that big old weak spot on top, and you can see that Tiger 2 knows exactly where to point and shoot. But it is just, I still like the tank. It's got some major drawbacks in terms of that penetration. It's not, well, I wouldn't actually call the penetration a major drawback. It's a drawback, and it's a weakness, but it's not major. The major thing with this is that giant weak spot on top. If you can keep that hidden, this is like a lovely scenario for this tank. Although I am getting penetrated, I'm bouncing an awful lot as well. Because I can keep that hatch hidden behind that rock while almost keeping my front lower plate hidden behind that little dune as I come around the corner as well. So for me, I can say I am definitely getting this. Whether you should buy it or not, I don't know. That's up to you. I genuinely get asked a lot, should I buy this tank skate? It's like, I don't know. Honestly, do you enjoy this sort of playstyle tank? If you do, buy the tank. If you don't buy the tank. If you're tired of playing Russian heavies at tier 8 to get your credits, or you do just fancy something different, you will probably enjoy this. 10 degrees of gun depression with good armour and fairly decent mobility. That's a winner for me. And at the moment, because it's new, and I think when I first started playing this tank, nobody's really seen it because a lot of people went, new tank. But nobody expects the reload to be as quick as it is. I mean, my adrenaline's on there, my reload's down to 4.5. Oh, one thing I need to mention as well, anything with a big caliber gun can penetrate the butt, just like you can on American heavy tanks. It hasn't got the best rear end. In fact, the rear armour is only 25mm thick, so it's pretty squishy. And then the last thing, which I think is very, very important for premium tanks, credits. How much credits does this thing make? Well, the straight answer is it's not as good as the old school premiums. And when I say the old schools, I mean like the Lerva, the T94, the Super Pershing. Those three make a whack of credits. Yes, the IS-6 can make good credits, and so can a T49, but not on the same level or as reliable as something like a Lerva T34, etc. They are what I class as the old school premiums. This thing, it's not too bad. I mean, this is going to be a very, very good game. And I'm in a perfect scenario for this tank. Look, we're hiding that weak spot through one side, we're hiding the lower plate. All they have to shoot at pretty much is the gun and the very, very bouncy part of the tank. And this game is going to be just shy of 5,000 damage. And we make 100,000 credits. Now, we do fire some APCR. But in a Lerva, I would have made a lot more than that. But in something like Type 59, well, it would have been on par with this, I think. It all depends on how many premium rounds you fire as well. I had a couple of 3,000 or 4,000 damage games in this tank, and I was making like 70, 80,000 credits. And then this one, well, you can see I'm missing several shots or bouncing several shots. And like I said, this is a lovely scenario for this tank, and it's very hard to hit me here, but you can see we're actually keeping that Tiger II permatracked in a heavy tank. That's not something you see every day. I mean, yeah, the Carnarvon can do it, but Carnarvon's slow as hell. This is just so much better than a Carnarvon. Oh, I apologise. One more final, very, very important note. You'd potentially think this thing has HESH, but it doesn't. Obviously, the T95 is an American medium tank turret, and therefore it has an American T208 90mm gun. So it doesn't have HESH. But that's not the important part I was going to mention. A couple of other things I completely forgot. I apologise. It has an amazing view range for a heavy tank. This view range is actually the same as the mediums of the same tier. Most tier 8 heavies have 264. T34, it's blind as a bat, it has in the 250s. This thing has 274. So you'll spot before your friendly heavies will, or even better, before your enemy heavies spot you. And with very, very good acceleration, like I said, it is capped to 40. 40 is not bad for a heavy tank, but it's very, very mobile in getting to that 40. And it reverses very quickly, as you can see. So it is a nice combination. It's a very... trying to find the right wording. It's a very fluid feeling tank. It just feels very smooth, very reliable. Yeah, it's got that big weak spot on top, but the gun is great, apart from that lack of pen. You can upgrade it with calibrated shells. I'm running a rammer here. Well, I mean, look, that's the second heavy we have permatracked in that location. And there's not a great deal he can do with us. He's a bit preoccupied with someone in our team, and we can just go to town on his track, over and over. Only other drawbacks I would say about this tank, trying to summarise everything, is your driver dies a surprising amount. I think he tries to stop the shells with his head. It's the only valid explanation for the amount of times he dies. And your ammo rack gets damaged a lot. All those things combined, though, there's major drawbacks I've explained, there's major positives I've explained. I really, really like this tank a lot. But like I said earlier, whether you should buy it or not, I don't know. That's not up to me. It's a great looking tank, and I'm going to have a lot of fun in this thing. For everyone else, as I mentioned earlier, I can't decide whether someone should buy this or not. What I've tried to do is go through the drawbacks, go through the positives, and basically try and weigh it up so someone's got the information there to weigh it up themselves. I can tell you though, from the games I've played, I genuinely have really, really enjoyed this, and it's something a little bit different. Also, stay tuned to the channel because the Type 64 is coming as well, the Tier 6 light tank, and I'm going to get a video on the go for that ASAP. I hope you've enjoyed the video though. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.